to strap in and get ready.
The leaders in NRL Supercoach are incoming. Bringing you the ultimate insight to help you win your leagues and climb up the rankings.
You're now listening to the Insight NRL Show with your hosts, Brain, Metrics, and Whisperer.
Yes, g'day guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Insight NRL Show. We're here for the Insight Unlimited Q&A, the weekly Q&A where we answer all of the Insight Unlimited members' questions for the week ahead for NRL Supercoach. I'm the SC Brain. I'm writing solo for this one this morning, trying to get this one out on a Thursday. So writing solo to smash out these questions, and we've got a ton of them coming up. Before we dive into them, we're obviously got to give you a shout out for Insight Unlimited. And if you want to become an Insight Unlimited member, it only costs you $25 for the full year. All you need to do is hop in the Discord and send one of us a DM or hit us up on X, and we'll give you all the information. You get access to NRL, AFL, NBL, and BBL Supercoach if you're a big fantasy sports nut like us, and also Insight NBA if you're an NBA fantasy player as well. So you get full access to our thoughts, our trades, our teams, waiver pickups for NBA and draft as well. So plenty coming that way. And obviously you get your questions answered on the podcast every single week. So you can become an Insight Unlimited member today for only $25. Hop in my DMs. I'll lead you in the right direction. Now, we've got a lot of questions coming up. Before we dive into them very quickly, hit subscribe and like if you like the content. We would really appreciate that moving forward. And if you're listening to us on audio, whether it's Spotify, if it's Apple, or if it's Google Podcasts, or wherever it is you get your audio pods, make sure you hit follow and leave us a review. Now, let's dive into these questions, shall we? We've got a lot to get through. I think I counted over 30. So I'm going to have to be relatively brief with my answers. I'll try my best to give you some solid ones as we go. But the first one, and a pretty popular question from Zanebeard this week, and I'm sure a lot of us super coaches are thinking the same thing, is Eli Katoa a buy with a low break even? Storm have an easy draw and he'll be playing through Origin. And look, for me, I think this one's a bit of a no-brainer if you're looking for that premium 2RF. I think there's kind of only two really that you consider. One's Eli Katoa. I think he's probably one of the better buys at 2RF this week. When we look very quickly at the Storm draw, you'll see it on the screen there. Where are they? There you go. So they've got through their tough run. They've had Panthers, Warriors, Knights, bye, Broncos. I don't think there's a tougher run in the NRL. And we said that through the preseason. But now we look at their draw and it's going to start to free up from here. So you got the Bulldogs this week, a very nice matchup at home. You got the Roosters who are struggling at the moment. You've got Souths who are struggling even more. And then they go into a run of Gold Coast Titans, the Sharks, the Eels, and then Manly into Origin. So I'll tell you what, there are definitely some worse teams to attack than the Melbourne Storm assets this year. But I think Eli Katoa is a really good buy this week. Jacko is asking Spencer Leniu or Liam Henry to Gus Crichton. And I guess my answer to this one, I'm assuming there's duels involved, obviously, to get Leniu out of your team and to get Gus in. But I think Liam Henry's probably done his time. I think it's time to probably move him on now that James Fisher-Harris is back and obviously coming off a HIA. We don't really know how that looks yet. But my concern for Henry is he'll probably average 30 to 35 on the season, which is fine for what we paid for him to start the season. But there's got to be a cash out point. And I think maybe we're approaching that point with Liam Henry now. With Spencer Leniu, there's a little bit more cash there to use too, right? So a Lenu's not going to lose your cash until round 9. Maybe he's a guy you just hold until round 9 and use as your third front row forward. We've been looking for a cash out opportunity for Leniu now for a while and we haven't found it. So I would say I'd be trading at maybe Henry to Gus Crichton potentially and leave Leniu for a better opportunity or a better upgrade in the front row forward if you needed that. Now, we've got Dr. Hamo, proud sponsor of the show from Hammond's Home Finance of Stewart Newstead. Ryan's asked, pick one and explain why out of Lomax, Manu, Olakau'atu and Eli Katoa. And you got 4 good options there. A couple of questions on Lomax this week. I'll try and cover them now. But Lomax as a buy in general, I'm still a little bit concerned about this whole transfer risk or rumour, I guess we're working with. There's a lot of talk saying that he's going to end up at Parramatta. It could be as early as this season if they get a good enough trade or a good enough player swap. For me, yes, he's at fullback now, and absolutely, if he stays at fullback for St George for the rest of the year and he's goal kicking, I think there won't be many better options. I think he's a fantastic option, but let's say, for instance, plays fullback for 2 weeks, you get good points out of him, and then he goes to the Eels and goes back to left centre or right centre where he prefers to be, and his base goes down. He's obviously doesn't get those kick return meters. He probably isn't the first choice goal kicker with Mitch Moses back in that team either. Gutho might kick ahead of him. Who knows? Lomax has never been an amazing goal kicker. I think he's a sub 80 goal kicker. So yeah, there's risk there that Lomax goes back to that kind of suboptimal role. It might be great right now, but the transfer risk is a little bit too much for me to jump on right now, especially at his price. If he was 150K cheaper, yes, absolutely jump on Lomax, but I think the price is too high with the trade risk. Joey Manu, again, another fantastic option this week, but we just don't know how long Teddy's going to be out for with that HIA. It is his 10th concussion in his career, so there are some concerns there that this might be ongoing, or they might rest him a little bit longer potentially. But so all the word coming out is saying that Teddy is tracking well and he's on track to return after his 11-day stand down. So Manu playing fullback for 1 week and then returning to the centres is a good enough option at centre, don't get me wrong, but I think if you're really looking to cash in, you're looking at Eli Katoa this week, and I'm going to double down on that. Hamoli Olakau'atu is a fantastic option. It all comes down to which position you want to buy in. And I know people have jewels in Burbo and Salmon, so that they can swap a few things around, but when you're looking at upside and you're looking at draw, Eli Katoa and the Melbourne Storm have the best draw, probably one of the best draws coming into the next 6 to 7 weeks before Origin. So I think Eli Katoa is the option as much as I love Olakau'atu as a play. I think Hamoli's a fantastic player. So that's my pick. Matty Granger, thinking of not buying Schiller or any more cash cows. My cash gen seems okay and I don't want to waste trades. How do you know when you've made enough cash? And Zanebeard also had a very similar question centered around how do we know when we've made enough money and when we should start prioritizing players to keep instead of getting all of these cheapies? I don't think there's any right or wrong answer. For me, I went back before this pod and I had a look at my last 4 years of Supercoach. And at round 5, I had made on or about $1 to $1.2 million in that first 5 rounds. Now, obviously, we don't make cash for 2 weeks before round 3's cash price kick in. This year, I think I'm at 900,000. Last year, I made 1 on the dot. The year before that, I made 1. And then the year before that, I made 1.1. So I think if you're sitting at around that 12.5 mark in total team value right now, I think you're in a pretty decent spot. Now, does that mean you need to stop buying cash cows? Absolutely not. I think when you get given an opportunity, and we're talking a lot about James Schiller, and we'll talk about him soon, when we're talking about guys like James Schiller with a negative 115 break even, I think it is, if I'm correct, 117 break even, that he walks on the park and makes you $100,000. Now, is that worth a trade? I'd probably argue it is. That's probably my figure. If I'm going to put a money figure on a trade, it's going to be around the 100K mark if I'm going to make that trade. Now, obviously, there is a lot of risk with Schiller. I'll probably cut to it now. The risk with Schiller, unfortunately, is that there's every chance Hopewadi comes back into this team next week. He's out of the team because he had that kitchen nightmares bloody accident where he burnt his hand or something when an oil can exploded in his hand. So he's apparently going to be back next week. Now, does Schiller drop out? Every chance. Every chance he does. So we're getting him for a 1 week cash grab, and then you've got to get him back out. Now, the good thing is we've got some cheapies coming up that we can downgrade to and claim that cash very quickly. So I'll talk about them very soon. But I think, yeah, to answer your question, if you're above 12.6 to 12.7 mil at the moment, maybe you can hold off. Maybe you can hold off on Schiller. Maybe you don't necessarily need to grab him, especially if you've got a ton of NPRs on the bench, non-playing reserves, and you are looking for a little bit of depth. I think going for Schiller for a 1 week play, knowing you have to trade him back out in a couple of weeks, maybe that isn't the play for people who don't have depth. But if you've got plenty of depth, I think you can get away with using Schiller this week as a cash grab, move him onto one of those good options next week. Seamoose is asking, would you use a third boost to go Kepi to Eli Katoa? The other trades I've done are Lane to SJ and Young to Schiller. I would. Yeah, I don't necessarily mind using 3 boosts early, especially this year. It's been a bit of a weird year. Especially for me, I haven't had the best year. I know a few of us haven't. So for me, the concern, I guess, is using a third boost. When are you going to use the next 2? And I think you need to have a plan. The third boost for me, I'm planning on using my third boost maybe in the lead up to Origin. So a little bit closer to Origin. I've used 2 at the moment. I've used my second this week. And then I'll use 1 through the Origin period, I'd say, and then 1 for the run home. Ideally, I like to have a boost in round 27, especially with what we saw last year with the mass restings. We know that's going to continue this year. So, yeah, it just depends how well it's going to set up your team. And I think Kepi to Eli Katoa is a boost-worthy trade, and I guess that's what I look at when I'm saying, do I use a boost this week? Are the trades I'm doing, are they boost-worthy? Now, is Lane to SJ boost-worthy? I don't mind it. I think it is. Is Dom Young to Schiller boost-worthy? Well, I mean, the cash is there. And then, obviously, Kepi is a massive upgrade to Eli Katoa. So, yeah, I'd do that. I'd pull the trigger. HZ Parker, honest thoughts on Lomax versus Manu as a buy for Dom Young? Both playing fullback, or grab both and miss out on Schiller. Again, I guess this maybe comes back to your depth, whether you can afford to spend 2 trades on 100K to get Schiller. The Lomax versus Manu debate, I hope I covered that already. I think Lomax, if he stays at the Dragons at fullback, great. If not, and he gets traded, I think maybe then he becomes a diminished option. Manu then obviously only at fullback for 1 week. I probably prefer, if they're both playing centre, I still probably prefer Manu, even though Lomax has the goal kicking. That's my answer there. But yeah, I think grabbing both and missing out on Schiller all comes down to your depth. Now, Isaac wants to know, is Ponga a priority trade-in? For me, I'm getting him back. I am righting the wrong, and I think that's what you've got to do as a super coacher, is you've got to right the wrong. When you get something wrong and you traded him out in round 3, like me, silly move. But I thought I was doing the right thing. Obviously wasn't, and he's gone ballistic since then, and he's gone a couple of tons. And again, if he tons up again this week, he's going to be 950, 960K. So, when a player goes 50 and 45 in their first 2 games, you think, shit, I paid $890 for this guy. I need to get him on. And he's gone 86, 117, 117. So I think he is the best option leading into Origin at fullback, or one of. I mean, you look at their draw. The Knights after this week, I mean, they're playing a depleted Roosters. Then they're playing the Bulldogs, the Dolphins, the Warriors, who concede the most points, Supercoach points to fullbacks, the Tigers, the Titans into the bye round 12. And then obviously round 13, they play as well. And for someone like Kalen Ponga, who's every chance of not playing Origin again due to Reece Walsh locking that position down, I'll tell you what, it's round 13 against the Bulldogs could be a nice little automatic captain match up there too. So would I call him a priority trade-in? Yeah, I think I would. Even at the price. I think you've got to pay up and get Ponga now. And just my luck, as soon as everyone jumps on and I jump back on, he's going to shoot the bed again. So who knows? Take it with a grain of salt. Zero Static. Who are some underperforming players who you think might make a comeback soon? I quickly had a look before, and I've got 2. One I own in Taylor May. Now, the reason I think Taylor May is probably going to come good at some point, I mean, he's averaging 43 for the season at the moment. He's 414K. He's lost 44K. It's not the end of the world. But he's gone 67 and 53 in his first 2 games. And then the next 3 games have dropped off a cliff. Now, the reason for that, especially in the Broncos and in the Roosters games in round 3 and 4, you could see that there was a massive mismatch on Isaac Tungo's edge. So the ball went right a lot. Through Tungo, through Taruva. We saw Taruva score a hat-trick in one of those weeks. The ball has barely gone left, and we've seen Brian To'o kind of suffer from this as well. So it's not just Taylor May, it's To'o as well. They've been exploiting mismatches on that edge because they've had edge back rowers in the centres due to injuries. So I wouldn't be writing off Taylor May just yet. I think he is a hold. I know a lot of people are selling him this week, but just because he's on the bye, I think for me, I'm holding him personally, and I'm going to back him in that he comes good, because from what we saw in the World Club Challenge in the first 2 rounds of the NRL, he's good enough to average 60 on the year. Now, he's gone, I think, 75 in the World Club Challenge, where he looked amazing. He went 67 against Melbourne in round 1, and that was at Amy Park in Melbourne, so not an easy trip. And then he's gone 53 against Parramatta. So, I don't necessarily see what's wrong with those scores. I know that we're looking at the last 3, and there's a concern that he's going to drop more cash. He's got a break even now of 60, but there's every chance he hits that 60 next week when he plays the Tigers. That could be a huge match for him if they if they go down the left this time. Cleary will be back. So, yeah, I'm backing in Taylor May. The second one, I think, is Britton Nickera. Now, I'm definitely not jumping on him yet because he's going to have a pretty big break even. So I think he can drop some cash. But Nickera, obviously with the suspension, he hasn't played as much time, but he's also averaged pretty poorly. I'd be picking him up when he bottoms out very quickly, and I think that could happen in the next fortnight. So Britain Nicker is another one that I'm going to be watching pretty closely over the next couple of weeks, because we know that he is a gun of the, I wouldn't say a gun of the past, a current gun. He's got season averages of over 70 last year, as one of the best 2RFs in the competition last year. His combination with Nico on the right edge is elite. I wouldn't be writing off Britain Nicker, and I think he's going to be someone we're looking at very soon. Second solution is asking, at what stage do you start planning for the Origin buy rounds? Now, this is, I guess, an individual kind of approach. For me, I've always attacked the buys pretty heavy. I've always tried to make my rankings move through the buy. So for me, I think usually when we get to double-digit rounds, when I'm looking at maybe coming into round 9 or 10, I'm starting to look at it. Round 10 especially, I'm starting to think now, how many do I have for round 13, and what's my squad makeup looking like? And you can check this in the Supercoach app as well. So you can have a look in the app at how many players that you have for each buy round. So you just click the arrow when you're in your team, click the arrow at the top right, slide down to the bottom, and it'll give you players that are playing in your buy round. So at the moment, if I have a look, I've got 19, 15, and 10 for the 13, 16, and 19 major buys. Obviously, in the major buys, it's only your best playing 13 as well. So definitely worth considering there that you don't necessarily need a full team to be able to score well in these rounds. It's your best playing 13 players. So you don't need to go and get 19 or 20 players available in this round. You can only go and just get 13 to 15, and you get your best playing 13. So worth keeping in mind there as well. But yeah, I mean, those numbers don't account for state of origin based players. It doesn't factor those into the app. So factor those in. But for me, I'm looking at the buy rounds probably around 9 and 10. So I've still got a little bit of time left. You still want to be able to generate as much cash as possible now. And then obviously you can start looking at how many you have for round 13 when we get a little bit closer to round 10. Legless Goanna wants to know, give Latrell the flick, which is, obvious. He's going to be out for 3 weeks. Do I pick CNK or Tamari Martin? Now, I guess two different answers to this. First of all, are you doing Trell to another fullback, or are you doing it via duels? If that's the case, and you're doing it via duels, Tamari Martin's a 5'8" fullback duel, which is a really awkward duel to have. I like Tamari Martin as an option, but he's not a buy this week. I think you can wait another week and have a look at how he goes with SJ again. Coming off a 93 is fantastic. So if he does that again or goes anywhere close to that, he's going to have a really large negative break even next week. Probably will be one of the most bought players next week if he does perform well again this week. But I'm picking CNK, Charles Nickel Cookster. I think going Trell to another fullback, if these are the two options that you like, I'm picking CNK every day of the week, purely because you can wait another week on Tamari Martin, and CNK is a guy that's going to get you points. He looked fantastic last week. He's in a good team. They've got a relatively good draw as well. So back in CNK, I think, for Trell, if that's the way that you're going. Jacko wants to know, Walsh or Turbo? Now, I'm a Turbo owner, and looking at Turbo's draw, it's not too bad coming up. I mean, they've got the Warriors, who I said are notorious to leak points to fullbacks. They've got the Titans the week after that. Eels haven't been great and have always been relatively leaky. The Raiders have been good this year. Dolphins have been ordinary and leak points for the most part. And then you've got Broncos into Melbourne, into the Panthers. So that run from the 11 through to round 14 is not good for Turbo. When we're looking at Walsh, on the other hand, I might just pull it up on the screen very quickly. Probably easier for everybody on YouTube that wants to check it out. Hopefully, there we go. So we've got the Broncos coming into the Dolphins, Raiders, Tigers, Roosters, Eels, Manly, Gold Coast. And that is, I would say, probably one of the better runs into Origin with the Melbourne Storm. So I reckon that probably goes pretty close. And if you're looking at Walsh versus Turbo, I'm probably not buying Turbo this week. I have him and I'm holding him. There's no reason to actually sell him right now, but I'm probably not buying him. If I'm buying anyone, it's going to be Reece Walsh. And I think when we look at Reece Walsh's stats as well in Supercoach and have a look at his ownership, it is insanely low for what we know Reece Walsh can do. He will have the goal kicking as well. I can't see Tony Staggs keeping the goal kicking with Reynolds out. I think the only issue with Walsh is he's got 137 break even. So not exactly ideal when we're talking about a gun fullback. But again, if you're planning on keeping him long term, the only issue is you're going to have to probably cop the DNPs through Origin because he will be playing Origin football. So, yeah, he's coming off a 1. That's going to stay in his rolling average for 2 weeks. So we know he's going to have probably 2 weeks of a big break even. So he could even be a buy against it could be a buy against the Tigers in round 8 if you want to forego the Dolphins and Canberra matchup. But if you want straight points, I don't mind taking Walsh as a bit of a pod coming up against the Dolphins into the Raiders. So two handy matchups there. So I'd be siding with Walsh, Jacko. Velcro Wallet Guy, still one of my favourite Discord names. Thoughts on Young to Meaney? There's a bit of chat in the Discord about Nick Meaney, and I'm all for it. I know, speaking with Josh as well, Whisperer, he is a big Nick Meaney fan and not understanding why more people aren't looking at Nick Meaney. We look at, I guess, his stats and what he's been able to do so far this season and we mentioned it's a putrid draw that they have had. Nick Meaney's had to basically play against the 4 best defensive teams in the competition from last season. So we look at his scores. He's scored 44 in round 1 against the Panthers, where no one scores well. Then he's gone 61, 83, 69 with 1 try. Now, does Ryan Pappenhausen get the goal kicking back? I think if he was going to get it back, he'd have it back by now. I think they're just going to forgo it this year, let Meaney kick. He's kicked all of last year and this year. There's no point in making Pappy kick again. And when you're looking at that average, I think it's a 63 average. 64.3 average, where he's played against the Panthers, the Warriors, the Knights, and the Broncos, that is elite. That's elite areas. So when you've got a goal kicking, even if he's playing centre, you've got a goal kicking centre on a good team with one of the best draws coming into the competition into Origin. He's a fantastic option and someone I'd definitely be looking at if I was looking for a primo. He's also only 689k, so he's around the same price bracket as a Joey Manu. If you ask me, would I pick Joey Manu or would I pick Nick Meaney? I'd probably pick Meaney if I'm completely honest. So, yeah, I'm pretty high on him. I like it. Mr. Callio played 2 out of Bostock, Talau, Hughes, and Lussick. Tough one. There's a second part to this question I'll answer soon. So I'm playing 2 out of Bostock, Tommy Talau, Hughes, and Lussick. I think I'm definitely playing Bostock this week. I'm kind of forced to play Bostock, which I'm not upset about. The Dolphins are coming up against the Broncos this week, but they're definitely not, I wouldn't call them a full strength. Tommy Talau, I'd probably want to see a little bit more from him before I start relying on playing him every single week. I guess my concern there is that he's just got to form combinations again. They're coming up against New Zealand. That's a tough road trip. So going across the ditch, playing in New Zealand, I think that'll be tough for Talau and probably tough for Manly. Sam Hughes might benefit this week and might be a play. Now, and the reason I say this is because Max King has been ruled out as of yesterday. So Phil Gould on Twitter came out and said that Max King did not travel. So, didn't travel to Melbourne, so he won't be suiting up. So Sam Hughes could get a little bit of a bump in minutes, and we would expect him to. We see Farmasili now back on the bench and all those kinds of things. So there is a bit of risk there. But I think Sam Hughes, they've been talking about working him back into some work, and I reckon he's probably the play. Lussick just bores the living shit out of me now. Isn't it funny how everybody jumped from Danny Levi to Joey Lussick and then they swap roles, and Danny Levi then became incredibly good and Lussick has now turned to shit. So it's like the story of my season, Danny Levi to Joey Lussick. But if I'm playing 2, I think there's enough attacking upside in Bostock to snag a try. On the left wing, it seems like they're going higher to him a fair amount. So, I think Bostock and Sam Hughes would be my 2 picks out of these. You can't really go wrong with Lussick either, to be honest. He's just boring. He'll probably get you 40 more often than not. JD reserves out of Lussick, Seyfarth, Smithies, Lane, and Hughes. So I guess I'm dropping one, is my assumption from this question. The player I'm probably dropping here would be Lussick. I know the risk in Sam Hughes, but the Max King news kind of changes that for me. Lussick's safer, but I think Sam Hughes probably a better option this week. Seyfarth, Smithies, and Lane, I think you're playing all 3 of those guys if you have them. I know Lane's been a little bit disappointing this year, but I mean, it's only going to take 1 try to really open things up for him. And I do rate Dejan Arce much more than I rate Blaze Talangi as a 5'8". So, I mean, even if we see Dejan Arce play a little bit more halfback and it frees up Dylan Brown, that could actually really open up Brown and Lane. I really don't like Dylan Brown at halfback at all. So if that's the case, Lane's a great play. And for people trading him, I'd probably say reconsider, or at least watch another week and see what that looks like with Dejan Arce in the team. Now, JW is asking Ponga or Drinkwater, and then Lomax or Manu. I've answered the Lomax versus Manu one. I'd probably pick Manu over Lomax. And then Ponga versus Drinkwater. Now, this is actually one I was talking to the guys about in the chat. Scotty Drinkwater is a guy that's just been chronically underrated and under-talked about this year. Now, when we look at Ponga, I've spoken about his draw. The draw looks good. He's coming off a couple of hundreds. If he goes 100 again, it'd be big price. It'd be out of reach for a lot of people, and he's well owned. So he's not a guy you kind of want to anti-pod. But Scott Drinkwater is the third highest scorer, averaging 87.2 this year. And if you want to get him this week, I reckon he's nearly an automatic captain's option this week. You're looking at his last 3 games against Parramatta. Last year in round 21, 122 points. Last year in round 13, 117 points. Round 2022, round 8, 113 points. So his last 3 games in 3 different venues, mind you, have all been over 100. Now, this is a really advantageous matchup for Scott Drinkwater against the Parramatta Eels. The only problem is he's got the Sharks into Panthers the next 2 weeks, which just isn't great. Personally, I think the time to get Drinky might even be round 9. You go Dolphins, Gold Coast, Souths, Tigers into Origin. And that kind of aligns quite well with when Turbo's draw gets quite tough. So personally, my plan is I'm going to be going in round 9. I'm going to be doing Turbo to Drinky for that run into Origin. So if I'm picking one Ponga or Drinkwater, I mean, if you want the pod, it's the perfect week to do it for Drinky. But it's so hard to fade Ponga. So I'd probably still be picking Ponga. But if you've got balls, take on Drinky's matchup. Melmo, have one trade locked in, Latrell to Schiller. Second trade could either be Talangi to Pappenhausen, May to Turbo, or Brown to Ponga. Which combo is best? I mean, in terms of total depth, I like Talangi to Pappenhausen. I'm not quite sure who the second, how this is going to play out, but Latrell to Schiller via Jules, I'm assuming. And then getting Talangi in for Pappy. We talked about the Storm's draw. I don't mind that at all. I mean, Dylan Brown could be a hold. I think the boys called him a sell on the show. I do tend to agree with them. I don't like his role how it is right now. But with Dejan Arce coming into this team, I feel like there could be something changing. I'm not quite sure whether this is going to benefit him or hinder him. For the record, I jumped off Dylan Brown about 2 weeks ago, and I'm glad I did. But, yeah, I mean, Brown's still a quality player in his own right. His base is just down, and the role that he's in is putrid. Brown to Ponga. Ponga's still a gun. May to Turbo. I don't know whether I'd be buying Turbo. So I'm going to write that one off. Talangi to Pappenhausen is incredibly enticing, though, I'll tell you that much. Just to get a bit spicy, I'd probably pick that because Pappy's draw is going to be quite good moving forward. Bray 888 is asking, should I boost Trell, Dillbags, and Jacob Gagai, I assume it is, wouldn't be Dane, to Pappy, Manu, and Schiller? Only leaves me 100K in the bank, and then I'm relying on a cheapy downgrade for Cleary next week. Now, this is an interesting one because, we're looking at getting out Trell and Dylan Brown, which is fine. Trell's gone. Dillbags is not an amazing role, like I just mentioned, and Jacob Gagai won't be seeing any more footy unless there's injuries. Getting in Pappenhausen and Manu, fantastic, and Schiller's going to be a great cash grab. So I think they're all good trades. The only issue we have here is that we've only got 100K in the bank to then try and get Cleary next week. Now, a lot of people went to Luke Brooks and have to try and find the money to go Brooks up to Cleary, which is around, I think at the moment, it's about 380, 370K, something like that, roughly. Might even be closer to 400K. So you're going to need to find another 300K at some point. So you're going to probably be looking at, and I guess the beauty of this is that we've got 2 ripe for the picking centre wing cheapies coming up in the next 2 weeks. So you've got Kale Iro next week, who will be on the bubble. And if he performs again this week, it's going to be really hard for them to get Talakai back into the centres if Iro shows them what he can do. We were talking about him very highly on the show all through the preseason. So if he can lock down that centre spot, he's going to be a must-have next week. Then the week after, we've got Chevy Stewart, which, look, every chance he holds that spot and Hopewadi goes back onto the wing and Schiller drops out. So there is maybe a small chance that we potentially could see Hopewadi go to fullback. Schiller only play a week. And then we see Chevy Stewart play for 1 week at the back. Hopewadi comes back at a fullback and Schiller holds his spot on the wing. I think that's less likely, but it could still happen. So a lot of moving parts with that Schiller move. But Chevy Stewart could then be a trade in 2 weeks' time when he's on the bubble if he maintains that fullback spot. So we could have 2 really nice centre wing downgrades in the next 2 weeks. So I don't think we need to panic too much. You would just need to look at downgrading one of your centre wings to Iro and hoping Iro holds his spot next week. I think there's enough cash downgrade options at the moment floating around for you to be able to find the money for Cleary next week. But I mean, just depends on how many boosts you've used as well, Bray. That's probably the one question mark as well for me. If it's your 4th boost, I'd be questioning things. But if it's only your 3rd, you can probably get away with it. Just got to be wary that you can only do whoever it is to Cleary in one trade next week instead of having another boost then to do it in 2. Troz, Eli Katoa or Joey Manu? I'm picking Eli Katoa. I'll skip past that one. Sorry, I've talked about him a fair bit in this pod. You probably know my feelings on how Katoa goes. Pitbull, would you get Pappenhausen over Ponga this week? It allows me to sell Bostock over Hammer to get Cleary. And look, we're looking at 2 different combinations here. We're looking at Pappenhausen and Hammer or Ponga and Bostock. Now, for me, I'm picking Pappy and Hammer. I think Bostock's try scoring will probably get to a point where it dries up a tiny bit. I think he's going to top out in the next fortnight, Bostock, and he's going to be a trade. So I would be looking at probably wanting to trade out Bostock to get Cleary. So I'd probably forego Ponga for this short period and get Pappenhausen for their nice storm draw. And then you can hold Hammer as well, who's probably going to score much better than Bostock over that period. So I think Pappy and Hammer outscore Ponga and Bostock over the next 6 weeks leading into Origin. And the final question here, thanks for bearing with me, guys. We've got a ton here and we're loving them all. Aussie Ray, play Levi or Brooks as a reserve 4? Who would have thought that 2 weeks ago we're asking if we'd even play Luke Brooks as a reserve? Everybody was calling him for fucking New South Wales number 6. Levi or Brooks as reserve 4? Look, I don't like relying on Levi at all. It scares me, his role. He's scored so many tries. It's like the Wade Egan of last year. Danny Levi has a -2 break even. He averages 44.6 on the year. His last 2 scores are 68 and 42 that both involve tries. The only score over 45 that he has scored with a try was a 68. Now, he's only maxing at 28 tackles a game. There's a couple of line breaks in here as well with that try. And then there's absolutely sweet fuck all with anything else. Now, they are playing the Gold Coast Titans, so that is the enticing factor here for Danny Levi. I guess the question you've got to ask yourself, Ray, is can Levi score again? Because if you don't think he can, I'd be playing Brooks. I think Brooks's role is looking decent. We know he's going to crash back down to earth, and he did last week, and we've said it for everybody that was high on him at the start of the season. But I still think you'd rather play Brooks over Levi. I don't like backing my hooker to score a try for them to score more than 45. That's a concern for me. So, and watch him score. He'll probably score. And the way my season has gone so far, I think you're probably going to see Danny Levi get over the stripe, but I'm picking Brooks on this one. Guys, brings us to the end. I think 30-odd questions we've got through there. I did my best, hopefully, to answer them with a bit of depth there and still keep the podcast relatively short and consumable for you all. Appreciate you all watching. And, of course, if you do want to become an Insight Unlimited member, all you need to do is hop in the free Discord. Whether you want to become an Insight Unlimited member or not, you should jump in the Discord. We've got nearly 1,000 people in there that love talking Supercoach and fantasy sport. Great community in there that help each other with their trades, teams, captains, vice captains, whether they should loop, and basically all the questions answered. We've got some cracker guys in there. Definitely worth jumping in the free Discord. And if you want to pay the $25 to either support the show or become an Insight Unlimited member and get access to us and our moves, our trades, our thoughts, exclusive Q&As and all of that kind of stuff, you can do that as well. Thanks for watching. Please hit subscribe and like. We would love that. Follow and review if you're listening to us on audio. Good luck this week for round 6 of NRL Supercoach. Hopefully plenty of green arrows for you. We will see you Sunday for the wrap up of the week. See you then.